Turbo and 2K show.
What is up, 2K crew? It is that time of the week again, and your eyes do not deceive you. It is Turbo and 2Ks this week coming at you. 2Ks, what's been going on, brother?
Oh, it's been good. It's been real good. I can't complain at all. I mean, the weather's been perfect. Been able to get outside and do some things. Nolan has just taken on football here recently. He wants to be a football player, so we've been outside all day today throwing a football back and forth, and you can't get enough of it. And I have to admit, it's a very, very cool feeling to to be able to get outside and throw the ball around with your son, and he's finally taking interest in that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's been pretty cool.
It's better than having stare at a screen.
Yeah,
stare at a screen.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, 2K, it's good to have you back, my brother. And for those of you watching, we got a badass show planned for you today. We're going to run through some news because we got some big news that just happened today, 2K crew. But we also are going to break down kind of our kind of takeaway on the NFL Combine. I know I've been every time I've been trying to type this 2Ks, whether it was prep for the show or on the Facebook group, I type draft and then have to delete that. It is indeed the Combine. We're not at the draft quite yet. But we're going to break down some of the local talent there, see how that, how their performance might skyrocket or might kind of tank their draft positions, as well as we're going to talk about the NCAA basketball season up to this point, and we got a really good top 5 in line for you guys and gals. We're going to talk about the our top 5 NCAA players since 2000. I was I initially tweeted at you 2Ks. I said our lifetime, but let's be honest. You know, I'm 11 years older than you, and even if we go back to 1980, I really didn't start watching college basketball until probably when I was in high school. So round about 2000, call it good. I don't think I mean, granted, yes, Michael Jordan was playing college basketball when I was alive. Did I watch any of it? Just on clips. So that's what we got in store for you guys and gals and 2Ks. While you're gone, I made us some new graphics. Look at that.
Nice.
Pow!
Oh, yeah.
We're going big time for you 2K crew. And if you are watching us on YouTube, go ahead and give us a like. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell to get notified every time we go live. If you're watching us over on Facebook, I do appreciate you guys and gals. And if you're watching on Twitter, welcome. And if you're on the audio side, you are the unsung heroes of this show. Wherever you consume your podcast content, go ahead and give us a follow and give us a 5-star rating. Why don't you? Well, 2Ks. We're going to start off the show kind of, every time we open the show, I try to open it with some pizzazz, with some energy. But this was some news that came down earlier today that really isn't kind of uplifting. But this is a tweet from ESPN PR. ESPN is very sorry to share this devastating news. Award-winning journalist Chris Mortensen passed away this morning at the age of 72. Mort, you will be missed, my friend. I don't think I'm the only one that kind of grew up with NFL Live and his reporting on ESPN. And it seems like 2Ks, maybe it's us just getting old, or the guys that we grew up with on ESPN are getting old, but it seems like they're thinning out.
Yeah.
I mean, even Dan Patrick has a full head of gray hair now. And he said he's stepping away here very soon. But Rich Eisen still looks great.
Yeah.
Rich Eisen still looks great. Maybe he got out and went to NFL Live or the NFL Network at the right time to kind of help preserve some of that. But Mort, you will be missed, my friend. And if you do a quick search on Twitter, you will see all of his colleagues just giving some of the most genuine and some of the most heartfelt memories and everything of him. So rest in peace, my friend. You will be missed. But 2Ks, we had some uplifting news today in Iowa City. Caitlin Clark she passes Pete Maravich to become the NCAA's men's and women's all-time leading scorer. History made. Now, I believe the last time I did the show, I talked about her passing the career women's number. And today she needed 18 points, I believe it was, to pass Pistol Pete. And if I'm not mistaken, on DraftKings, you could have taken, I can't remember what the odds were, but you could have taken her breaking that by halftime, which she did. She had 18 points at halftime.
Yeah.
And one of the coolest things about her 2Ks, at least I think is cool, is that not only is she a prolific scorer, but she also leads women's basketball in assists. So if you think about it that way, she's averaging over 30 points a game, and which is I believe is leading women's basketball and leading in assists. So she's contributing, and she's a part of like 80% of Iowa's points.
Yeah. I mean, we have watched some really, really good women's basketball players over the year. I don't think we've seen anybody as good as her.
No.
She is unreal. Kind of had that coming out party last season, especially in the tournament when we watched her kind of carry that team. That, let's just be honest, they did not belong.
No.
Where they were, where they got to the national championship and then fell short to LSU, but. She just basically put the team on her back and carried them through that, and she's an incredible player, and she's going to go on to have one hell of a career at the next level also.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And did they end up winning that game against Ohio State today?
Mm-hmm.
So they took down the number 2 team. So to say that not only is she making an impact on her team, historically, but her team itself rallies around her, and she did come out and say that she is declaring for the WNBA draft, so it kind of took the pressure off her teammates moving forward in the Big Ten tournament and in the women's March Madness. So that was awesome of her, because she really could come back. She could have come back next year, but at this point, I mean, yes, she would want to win a national championship, but what else is there to do?
Right.
I mean, you've done it. And there's a lot of people saying, well, with her NIL and stuff like that, she's making quite a bit of money. And to say that she's the top NIL person in Iowa is kind of an understatement. But she's sponsored by like Gatorade and a bunch of these other things that are going to just follow her to Indianapolis, because Indy does have the number 1 overall pick. And this would be like Cleveland passing on LeBron.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's pretty much a no-brainer. She is going to be in Indianapolis, which going from Iowa to Indy isn't really that much of a culture shock, so that's pretty cool. But speaking of LeBron, this was a tweet from PFT commentator over all-time leading scorers in college basketball. Number 1, Caitlin Clark. Number 2, Pete Maravich. Tied for last, LeBron James. And like you and I are talking, like you and I were chatting before the show started, he is the best part of that show.
Yeah.
So he is. For those of you who don't know, he's part of the Pardon My Take crew, and sometimes that can be kind of a hard watch, hard listen. But he brings it, and I do thoroughly enjoy his commentary there. And local news tidbit here, 2Ks, our one and only Gabby Allen.
Yeah.
State runner-up. So kudos to her. Congratulations. I'm sure this is like the second or third time. Fourth time.
And I mean, I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure it's 4 and the same opponent all 4 times.
Oh, yeah. So
yeah. So it's just incredible. I mean, to both of these young girls, like it just. To get there 4 times, and obviously I know for Gabby would love to have one of those, but you can't take anything away from her 4 times, and then to get there is that's an incredible thing to so definitely don't hang your head. There's a lot to be proud of there, and I can promise there's an entire community that's proud of her for that.
125%. So kudos to you. Kudos to Coach Adams and all the crew over there. And speaking of wrestling, that youth wrestling thing that they got going on in Marcellus, damn, those kids are bringing home hardware. It seems like every week.
There is. There's that wrestling program in Marcellus is going to be very good for a long time.
Yes.
That's what it looks like.
Was that My Way? Is that what it's called?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So kudos to everyone involved. Very proud of each and every one of you. Keep it up. And Gabby, if nothing else, you've set a standard that all the other wrestlers behind you will look to at least match, if not exceed. So, and you've paved the way, and it really can be done out of little podunk Marcellus, Michigan. So kudos to you. Kudos to you. Well, 2Ks, let's jump into the combine here. I do have a couple little tidbits here before I want to get your input on a couple of things here. This is from John. I'm going to butcher his name, Frascatella, whatever it is, at Legend Sports 7. Let's put it that way. Do Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels understand what they've done by not participating in the draft combine? Number 1 point, J.J. McCarthy is now being talked about as a top 3 pick. Number 2, Bo Nix is now being talked about as a possible first-round pick. Number 3, did they possibly open up a scenario where 6 quarterbacks get selected in the first round, including Michael Penix Jr.? Number 4, they indirectly boosted the draft stock of sleeper Joe Milton, which if you watched any of the videos, that dude has a cannon. Has a cannon. And it says, sit back and watch other people take your spots.
I don't agree with that. I mean, these 3... It's safe to say that these 3 that did not participate in this combine, they're all going to get drafted in the first round. There's going to be, I think there's at least 5 quarterbacks drafted in the first round of this draft. I think there's a good chance that there's 6. But I think there's 5 that are definite locks. There's so many teams. Look across the NFL. There's so many teams that need a quarterback. And last I heard, you need to have a quarterback if you're going to win in the NFL.
Yeah,
so
a good one.
There's a lot of teams that don't have them. There's a lot of quarterbacks available. You got to look into the seasons after this too. You got next season. There's not really a quarterback that's being talked about right now that could be potentially, someone that's going to be going early in the draft next year. You look to the year after that. Really nobody we're talking about yet there either. Normally, when you get to this point, you're talking about 2 or 3 guys the next season, 2 or 3 guys that are up and coming. We don't have that. So I think for a lot of teams, the pressure's on. You got to go and get yourself a quarterback. I look at teams, there's the obvious ones. We know the Bears are going to take one of these quarterbacks. Yep. That's obvious. We know Washington's going to take a quarterback. That to me is obvious. The Giants, we know they're going to take a quarterback. That's obvious. But then you look at other situations. What are the Vikings going to do?
Yep.
What's going to happen with the Falcons? I know there's some rumors out there that might be the Bears, trade, potential trade here is with the Falcons. So that kind of puts them out on it. I already mentioned the Vikings, Seahawks. They're going to have to do something at quarterback. I think it's safe to say, Geno Smith is not the guy.
Vegas
to do that. Yes, Vegas,
New England.
Yes. The list goes on.
Yeah,
so to me, there's 5 quarterbacks at least that are all going in the first round. I think the kids, the J.J. McCarthy's, the Penix, the ones that were there that were showing out, doing what they're doing in the combine here. They obviously maybe raised their stock. Maybe we see McCarthy. I kind of had McCarthy before the combine being someone that we're looking at maybe late 20s in the draft. Maybe now he moves up. Maybe somebody's going to feel like they're going to need to trade up to get him. It's going to be interesting to see. But as far as that last comment saying for these 3 sit back and lose your spot, I disagree with that. And I think even regardless of what happens, there was an opportunity. There's an opportunity, and there's a lot to, it still needs to happen yet. But there's probably a lot of teams even before this combine that had J.J. McCarthy higher on their list than they had Jaden Daniels.
Absolutely.
To me, Caleb Williams and Drake May have kind of separated themselves from the field. I would be shocked if anybody goes before those 2. But after that, I know Jaden Daniels is a Heisman and huge numbers. But when you're a team that's constantly playing from behind, and you have 2 first-round wide receivers on your team, like your numbers are obviously going to be huge. And then when you start talking, if you're going to compare like a Michael Penix to him, like I personally thought Michael Penix was the Heisman.
I did too.
We should get votes. If I had a Heisman vote and I was voting on it, Michael Penix would have been my Heisman Trophy winner.
Me too.
Jaden Daniels, all that was it was a Brian Kelly offense where you're basically just padding stats. You're playing from behind all the time. That defense was a fucking atrocious.
Horrible.
And then there's a lot of people that just tear into J.J. McCarthy and his numbers because they just simply didn't throw the ball. Well, if any of you guys watch Michigan this season, you'd realize they never were behind.
No.
So and
when they were, it was 3 to 7 points.
If you have the best defense in college football, and you have arguably the best offensive line in college football, and you have Blake Corum as your running back who led the NCAA in touchdowns this year, Why? I mean, why? Why would you have to throw it? You don't need to throw it. So
they beat Penn State without throwing the ball in the second half.
Yeah. So there's nobody could sit here across the table from me and convince me that J.J. McCarthy, with his arm talent and just the athlete that he is, that if he was given the players, the wide receiver weapons, and was constantly playing from behind like Jaden Daniels at LSU, that J.J. McCarthy doesn't have the talent to do what Daniels did. I will argue that with anybody until I'm fucking blue in the face. The difference is Daniels was behind all the time and lost multiple games, lost 3 games on the season. So he was playing from behind all the time, so padding the stats, and the other one never lost a fucking game and never was behind.
The only in my eyes, 2Ks, the only thing that separates those two dudes is Daniels' running ability. He's elusive. He's more of a.
I think McCarthy's better. I think McCarthy's more athletic.
No,
I honestly do.
I'm not arguing that fact. I'm just saying that's what separates them.
Yeah.
Which one is better? I'm still leaning towards McCarthy.
Yeah.
The leadership aspect is huge. The hell is that noise? the leadership aspect and a lot more in the package for me is worth more. But let's take a look at the first round draft picks here. The Bears obviously are going quarterback. Commanders quarterback. Patriots quarterback. Number 4, the Cardinals are not going quarterback, or at least one would think. But this could be a potential trade spot to trade out of that number 4 pick, fall down, and get some more Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, he seems to be the next slam dunk after these 3 quarterbacks. Arguably, you could say he's the best player in the draft.
Oh, 100%. I honestly think he is the best player in the draft.
And then Chargers, no quarterback. Giants, definitely a quarterback. Even though Danny Dimes is still under contract, that's still, in my eyes, a moot point. Tennessee, possibly. I know Will Levis is there. Tannehill is a free agent. Derrick Henry's a free agent. What's that offense going to look like without Vrabel there? Who knows? That's kind of a wild card there. The Falcons, quarterback. The Bears, if for whatever reason they don't take Caleb Williams, number 1 overall, could possibly grab one here. I honestly don't see a scenario where that happens. The Jets, the Jets are kind of tricky. I honestly don't think they would waste a pick here to get the heir apparent to Aaron Rodgers, because obviously it's not Zach Wilson. In my eyes, that definitely needs to be probably the first, if not second, offensive lineman taken in the draft right here. The Vikings, like you mentioned with Kirk Cousins, he's a free agent. Who knows? And not to take anything away from Kirk Cousins, but if he's like the most highly touted free agent quarterback, I mean it's not. Aside from maybe Russell Wilson, let's put it that way. But he still hasn't been released by the Broncos yet. It seems to be pretty evident that is going to be. But yeah, that's a definite landing spot for a quarterback, as well as Denver, the Raiders, which we talked about, the Saints. I think they did something. They restructured Carr's contract. Is he the answer? Is this a spot where like a Penix or a Bo Nix, or after those top 3, one of these players go here? I can see that. If one of them falls here, sure. The Colts, nope. If the Colts let Gardner Minshew out of the building, they're stupid. Not to say that Anthony Richardson is not the answer. That's just when you only play 4 games your rookie year, you better have a good backup plan like they had. Seattle with Geno Smith, who knows? Jacksonville, nope. Cincinnati, nope. Rams, nope. And then maybe 20 at Pittsburgh. There's a lot of talk about Kenny Pickett not being the guy.
21 is intriguing to me.
The Dolphins?
Yeah. He's that one isn't like, okay, let's spitball here. Let's just say that Penix is still on the board. Who right now is a better thrower of the football, Penix or Tua. I don't even think it's close.
Penix.
I don't even think it's close.
But then again,
I mean, obviously, the Dolphins game against Kansas City in the playoffs game was cold.
Yeah.
And what I took out of that as a fan is that Dolphins team is soft. They have to get tougher.
Yes.
They're very, very fast. They're very fun to watch. But when it comes to playoff games late in the season where you need to have that tough team, you struggle. But on top of that, Tua will never be a quarterback that will take teams to on playoff runs and win Super Bowls. So that's where they're an intriguing team to me. And I don't think it happens.
No.
I think they stand pat with him. But if I'm a Dolphins fan and someone like Penix is still on the board, and that pick comes and we're on, like, I think you have to consider it.
But would you want to replace an injured, riddled quarterback with another one? That would be my only hang-up with that.
Yeah. There's 4 or 5 quarterbacks in this draft that I would take all over Tua.
Yeah.
Who's injury, like you just said. I mean, that's another good point. It's been injuries. Mm-hmm. You get to restart that contract. It's kind of the same situation that we talk about with the Bears with Justin Fields. We say the Bears cannot turn this down because they get to restart the rookie contract with the quarterback. They're going to get something out of Justin Fields. Obviously, probably going to end up with a second-round pick out of that. And then, and you're not having to renegotiate a contract with him, which gives, and you already are a team that leads the NFL in cap space. Yeah. So you can go and do so much this offseason. And so that's what I say with the Dolphins. Like, man, if you have an opportunity at a quarterback, you have to step back and say, like, we're really, really good. We have a shit ton of talent. We have a shit ton of speed. Our defense needs to get tougher.
Yeah.
But our defense was improved. They were better last year. But you have to sit back and kind of evaluate your own team and say, man, we're not very good at quarterback.
John Clemick says Tua got a mushy head. John, out of all the quarterbacks that got hurt last year, the first one, if you would have asked me week one, if there's 14 quarterbacks go down, the number one person I would have said would have been Tua. Mm-hmm. And he played the whole year. Mm-hmm. Shockingly enough. I guess every quarterback needs to take jiu-jitsu and learn how to fall because it worked. It worked. And he had a hell of a season passing-wise. And like I said, just staying healthy.
He's got 2 weapons that are probably two of the fastest guys in the NFL. One is, as far as the fastest guy with the ball in his hands, and Tyreek Hill, and it seems like, and the thing that people always have raved about with him is he's accurate. Can't argue it, but he has no arm strength, so he throws a lot of 5-10 yard passes and just let your guys do. Now, how many times do you see Tyreek Hill completely burn somebody on a deep ball, and then he's underthrown, has to come back to it, and to where, man, if you have somebody that has an actual quarterback arm. Yeah. An NFL quarterback arm, like not a high school arm, that can throw Tyreek Hill open on that. Like, those are touchdowns where no one even is in the screen with him as you're watching it.
Now we continue down this. We got the Eagles. There's no need for quarterback there, as well as Houston. 24, the Cowboys 2Ks.
I mean, you paid Dak. You're not taking a quarterback here.
If Penix or any of those guys fall right here, do you really think? The thing the reason I brought it up is everyone blames Dak for these losses. Yeah. Everyone does, but
3 weeks before, 2 weeks before that playoff loss, Dak was in the MVP conversation.
And Jerry loves him. I mean, that's well documented.
Look, I don't think that when I talk about Tua and how I don't think he's ever going to be a quarterback that's going to get you to Super Bowls, I don't think Dak's ever going to do it either. No. He's not that guy. But you paid him. Yeah. You're not going to change it now. And when you look back at the loss last season in the playoffs, they're like, okay, you can say Dak wasn't good. He wasn't. That defense was fucking horrible. Mm-hmm. They were terrible that day. Like, there was so many other things.
It seems like once Diggs went down, that defense went to shit. Yep. And that, yes, he is a very good player, but you look at the names on that side of the ball, for them to be that bad, that has nothing to do with Dak.
To me, I guess for Dallas' sake, like I hope that Dallas I think their offensive line is still going to be really good. Tyron Smith is, I think there's a good chance he's not going to be there. That's going to be a huge loss.
They did cut ties with him.
Did they cut ties officially with him?
Yep.
So I knew that we kind of figured that was going to happen. That's going to be a huge loss. Another also a lineman that's mid to upper 30s. Didn't have a whole lot of time left, so
I'm pretty sure he blocked for Emmitt Smith.
Yeah, I mean it breaks my heart because he's one of the best Dallas offensive linemen ever.
He's one of the best offensive linemen ever.
So, but at the same time, you have to kind of just look into the future more and just say that he didn't have a whole lot of. There's not many miles left on that body, so I can understand not paying him.
And even as big as he is, I'm pretty sure there's not more real estate to put braces. Right. I mean, that dude is braced all to hell.
But offense should still be good. Their offensive line's still going to be fine. They still have weapon at receiver. To me, with them, what I want to see him do is I want to see him go after one of these running backs. You go after Saquon, you go after Derrick Henry, and add that. And then because if you can get the running game going and go back to like when Zeke was in his first couple seasons where you're really, really run heavy and not have to put the fucking ball in Dak's hands all the time to win games. Just let Dak be a serviceable quarterback, and that's fine. I mean, we look at San Francisco. They get to the Super Bowl. They're not trying to make Brock Purdy do too much.
No.
Brock Purdy just needed to go out and take care of the ball, not turn it over, and when he was asked to make plays, be able to make those throws. Mm-hmm. And he did it phenomenally. I mean, shit, we were talking. He was in the MVP talk conversation also. But what do they have? They have Christian McCaffrey. Mm-hmm. I tell you. You have a running back at that caliber. You have a Derrick Henry. You have a Saquon Barkley. You have Christian McCaffrey. That quarterback job all of a sudden gets way easier.
And
so to me,
you get
have
him on
to,
the cheap too.
Yes, and so to me, as a Dallas fan, you have to sit back and say, okay, we have Dak. We've paid him. We're not going to take anybody else. But we have to also admit to ourselves, Dak's not going to be the guy that's going to. Mm-hmm. We're not going to get to the promised land riding off of Dak's coattails.
No,
we have to go out and get whatever we can to make his job easier. That's go out and get one of these running backs. I'm talking Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, somebody that you can feed the rock to 25 times in a game. Maybe not in the regular season, but when you get to the playoffs, somebody that you can feed the fucking rock to 25 times and take the ball out of Dak's hands.
And another receiver to help CeeDee Lamb in this probably the deepest wide receiver class we've seen in years. But John says Dallas dropped an O-lineman, quarterback health, Pollard is unrestricted too. And
I mean well, I know I learned just from watching last year that Pollard is not the guy. No. Because Pollard fills into that number 2 role, being that second back. Phenomenally. He is great at that. He was great running behind Zeke. And I shouldn't even say those last couple of years he wasn't necessarily behind Zeke. He was just running with Zeke.
Complimenting.
Yes. So and he's great at that. But as far as being the featured back for 20 carries in a game, he's not that guy. No. He's not good he's not good in the red zone and not even really a threat as a goal line back to be able to get in the end zone. And that's where you say, like, Derrick Henry, you give him the ball in the goal line, he's getting in that fucking end zone.
With 4 guys draped all over him. Yep.
Saquon Barkley, I don't even think we've seen close to what he's capable of because of the situation that he's played in his entire career. And you give him a situation where he has Dak Prescott, who's better than any quarterback he's ever played with,
hands down,
and all those wide receivers. Mm-hmm. Dallas fucking third wide receiver would be the number 1 guy on the New York Giants team. That's how bad those wide receivers have been for years and years. Like, that team's fucking terrible.
And out of all 3 of the guys we've just talked about, Tony Pollard, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley. Saquon can do similar things that Christian McCaffrey can do. He's a great receiver out of the backfield. He's obviously a great runner, and he's proved that he can stay healthy, where those couple years he was banged up a lot. And, it's he would be the one I would target before Derrick Henry. But with Derrick Henry's resume, it's kind of hard to be like, well, and if you look at the offensive lines that both those dudes have had, not very prolific at all.
No.
At all. So if you put them in a really good situation, they're going to flourish. And it's going to be and
never had, I mean, like, look at Derrick Henry. Like, obviously it scares me a little bit with Henry because
he's older.
He's older, and he's got, there's a lot of miles on that guy. Tennessee rode him to what they were.
Tannehill's a quarterback.
But how many fucking 7-8 boxes did guys in the box did he see? He never played. Tannehill wasn't gonna fucking throw dimes on and they didn't. I mean, up 1 or 2 years of A.J. Brown was the best receiver they had, but even when they had him, still Tannehill wasn't throwing the ball all over the place. Before that, Marcus Mariota, he wasn't throwing the ball. No. So there's a lot of situations where defenses were just keying on Derrick Henry alone, and he was still fucking rushing for $150 on you and 2 touchdowns. Yeah, like the guy just incredible.
And I think it's safe to say that after. Tampa possibly, even though it looks like they're going to bring back Baker Mayfield, which I'm completely fine with. Everybody else, at 27, you might see Arizona take one, but I highly doubt it just because of we're not sure which Kyler. He did come back last year, and
well, now we're getting into the teams that were in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, they were actually good.
So if you're in the playoffs, you had a quarterback. You already have a quarterback, and if you are one of those teams that that didn't win the Super Bowl, like but all Buffalo, Detroit, Baltimore, like you have quarterbacks. There's other positions that are at need,
Yes. So getting back to the combine 2Ks, we did see, quarterbacks always take the limelight. For obvious reasons, it's you are not going to win without a good quarterback. But that receiver from, what was it, Texas? Set the 40-yard dash record. If you watch any of the 40s with a lineman, holy shit, we're seeing 350-pounders run in 5.02s. That's incredible. That's incredible. And the good part is no one pulled a Chris Jones and their dick fell out.
That is,
which is good for everybody.
Yeah, especially the kids.
Yeah,
especially the kids that are tuning in.
We don't need a Drake situation at the combine. That is or never a good idea. But let's go a little bit further in depth here with this with JJ. When I was perusing Twitter to kind of prep for the show, there was half of Twitter was like, "Oh my gosh, this guy is." We saw he could possibly sneak up in to be the number 3 pick, and then there's the other half of Twitter that was like, "This guy's terrible. He throws a deep ball like even worse than Lamar Jackson," and so many tweets that were like, "Well, McCarthy's really, really upset because there's not a handoff drill." These are all, and these aren't just from like haters. It's, maybe some of them were, but there was a lot of guys that were boots on the ground at the draft. Two polarizing points of view. Everyone was head over heels for what Bo Nix was able to do. Everyone was very, very content with, or content's not the right word, excited about what Michael Penix did. And now maybe it was in even the there was another one too. Joe Milton. And with his crazy deep ball and everything else, and it's like, all right, well, I honestly do think that this draft is going to be very deep for quarterbacks. And do you think I know which side you're going to go on, and I'm on that side too, but beside hate, what would you say that why would there be two very different points of view? Because
you're talking about McCarthy, right?
Yeah.
Because he was never asked to throw. He was never, there was never a game that Michigan had to ask McCarthy to just throw themselves into a win. He had the best. He was always played with the best defense, and if they weren't the best, they were a top 5 defense in college football. This last season, coming off of a national championship, I think it's pretty safe to say they had the best. Then they have a top tier offensive line, and you have Blake Corum as your running back. And then your number 1 receiver. Now, and this is the one thing that I wish people would fucking grasp, but I guess things are kind of tough for some people. Their number 1 wide receiver that he had was very, very fast, very talented, but let's not forget that he's about 5'7", And talking about, I'm having a brain fart on his name right now, but he never had a receiver that was
the tight ends were basically
his tight ends were his. A sophomore tight end this season is his number one target. Probably his go-to guy, the guy that he was the most comfortable with as far as needing big plays and big situations, need a first down on a third and long or something. But it's just like he didn't have shit. You imagine if he had, and I was saying this at the beginning. Imagine if he had the two wide receivers that Jaden Daniels has at LSU, and is playing being behind. I mean, there's only one game in the entire time that McCarthy was at Michigan where he played from behind, and that you have to go back into the playoff last season where they're coming back against TCU. Threw for over 300, threw for 3 touchdowns. Yeah. He can throw the ball. There's no question he can make the throws. He can do what he needs to do on that side of it. He was never asked to do it. So people, the haters out there that look at him, they're like, well, all he did was hand the ball off. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty fucking good, well-coached team to me. If you just do what you take to win the game. They never changed their identity. They never allowed an opponent to change who they were. They just stayed the same fucking steady Eddie, and they just handed out fucking spankings week in and week out is all that they did. Name another college team that did that, because all the other teams changed their identity. All the other teams played down. Well, all we heard about going into the national championship week was Michael Penix, how good he was. Man, that defense made him look like shit that game.
Yeah, they did. I lost a lot of money.
There was never a time where anybody made McCarthy look like shit.
Hammering his over, that's for sure.
So, and the thing, I guess the deep ball thing, I don't know what anybody's saying about that. I watched it, and I watched him throw a deep ball fucking 65 yards.
I watched the same thing.
The only guy I saw that that I'm watching, and I'm like, man, that guy has a better arm than McCarthy, was Joe Milton. He's the only one.
Yeah.
And Milton look at him. He's a fucking freak. The guy's going to throw the ball really, really hard. But can he read a defense? Because he couldn't do that. Let's not forget, this is the same guy that McCarthy took. McCarthy took his fucking job.
Yeah.
He was at Michigan. And Michigan was recruiting McCarthy saying, this guy's not the fucking answer. We need this guy to come in. So let's not forget that. So do I think that Milton is a quarterback that's going to be drafted in the first or second round of this draft? No. I do not think so. I think he's a middle round guy. You take a flyer pick on him. He's not Anthony Richardson. No. Anthony Richardson can do things with his feet. Milton can't do that. Milton's got a very, very strong arm. There's a lot of guys out there that can throw the football really, really far. It's can you do everything else? And then the other thing too, where I think McCarthy is just going to blow people out of the fucking water. Well, I don't even think it's not even a think. I know, and because we've already seen it just this week in his interviews. That kid can step into a room and is going to impress everybody just because of the character that he is.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that these other guys are not high character guys, but when McCarthy's given the time to talk, and somebody just he is like. I understand it. I'm biased. I'm a Michigan fan. I'm always going to be positive with them. But, like, the things that he says, my fucking doorbell going off. The things that when he starts talking post-game, pre-game, anything interview with him, like, I don't give a fuck who you are, how much you hate Michigan. You have to be like, man, that kid's fucking impressive.
Mm-hmm. And I'm in that camp.
Yeah.
Now, we need to address some comments here, 2Ks, because there are some folks that aren't in that camp.
Sure.
So let me read these off. They're from two individuals. One is John Clemick, who we've been chatting with. He says, "Oh, I'm a hater, but in what world is JJ a first-round quarterback?" He goes on to say, "He Dilfered himself into a championship." Now, John, I really have to disagree with you on that one.
Yeah.
And
he's a first-round quarterback because there's fucking 5 or 6 teams that need one.
Yeah. Yep. And from your buddy Cody Braisman, he says he made the throws when he had Ronnie Bell, and he said plus his completion percentage for the first 6 weeks was above 70%. I mean that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And Cody totally agrees with you. He says every world. So and John, please don't take any of this with disrespect. You know a lot about football. You are one of my boys. I think your Notre Dame, you might be a little biased here because JJ is a very good player. That is not saying that I'm cheating. Cheating on my Notre Dame faithful.
But like if I'm a Notre Dame fan, I'm thinking, man, I wish I had him as my quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
the other thing too that you can't forget, like, however he did it, and like I understand he handed the ball off way more than all these other quarterbacks that we're talking about. But the fucker got W's at better than any of these guys that we're talking about. And at the end of the day, I think I know for me personally, like, I compare players by wins and losses. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what makes you great when you win.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're a winner, and something to be said about, as bad as Michigan was, this was a program that was bad. Like, they were fucking terrible.
Yes.
We wanted a COVID year. We wanted Jim Harbaugh out. And then the next thing you know, and I understand there was 1 year of McNamara before McCarthy takes over as a starter, but I know for me personally and most Michigan fans, we said that year, like, McCarthy's the better quarterback. Mm-hmm. McNamara is just the upperclassman that Harbaugh just trusts a little bit more right now. But come sophomore year, there's no question who's going to take over there. But there's something to be said about 26-1 as the starting quarterback at the University of Michigan when they were bad when he walked onto that campus.
And one thing I think too that separates JJ from any one of the other quarterbacks is he played a more pro style offense at Michigan. Mm-hmm. He played under center, where I guarantee Michael Penix didn't play under center. Mm-hmm. I mean, Caleb Williams never played under center. Caleb Williams was just heaving the ball around, which doing very well at it. And you look at, and now granted, before I get a lot of hate here, I know that the NFL is opening up. I know that most quarterbacks don't go under center nearly as much as they used to. But you look at the top teams, and even take Buffalo. Take Buffalo, for instance. Josh Allen never gets under center. Mm-hmm. Their running game is atrocious. What is always their biggest heel? What they flounder in games when they shouldn't because they can't run the ball. Because, and I'm not saying Josh Allen can't do it. I'm just saying they don't do it. Mm-hmm. And you look at Mahomes. Mahomes gets under center a lot. Jalen Hurts gets under center a lot. Mm-hmm. I have a feeling you're going to see shit. I just went off on a tangent and lost my thought. You're going to see the Chargers. Yeah, I have a very good feeling that Harbaugh's going to bring some sort of that offense to the Chargers. Mm-hmm. And you're going to see Justin Herbert under center a lot more. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, I know last year he couldn't do it because of his broken fingers, plural. But there is a point where you have to do that. And all the great quarterbacks before have done this. So I think that is a major just plus for him that he does. There's no teaching. There's no teaching the footwork. It's already there. Mm-hmm. It's already there. So to have that leg up, in my opinion, is what separates him from all the other guys. But like I said, there is the top three. I'm not going to argue that JJ belongs in the top three because I think those are already set. And if you're JJ, I would want to go a little later, so I'm on a little bit better team.
A better situation. Like, yeah. I mean, if you're sitting there saying you want to go to the Bears right now, nobody wants to. Fucking Caleb. No. If Caleb Williams, if he could say his piece right now, I know for a fact he's saying he doesn't want to go there. And then you look at the Washington. They're probably the best setup right now. Yeah, it's going into Washington. And then the Patriots. Fuck, I don't want to go there.
No,
like that is a terrible situation to go into right now. But I don't know. I still don't think. Like, I think that there is. I think J.J. McCarthy could get into that top three. I don't think he can get into the top two. I think the two are locked.
Yeah,
I will say that. But Jaden Daniels has not done. He put up buco huge numbers at LSU. Mm-hmm. Sure, he was behind all the time. It was a perfect situation for him. He had two guys that we're going to see. One's going to be a top 10 pick, and the other one's probably going to be a top 20 pick as his two receivers. And he played from behind all the time, and in a very, very pass-heavy Brian Kelly offense.
And where that where that offense was in Notre Dame, I have no idea.
Well,
but one of the things he said was, if I can get a Heisman winner at quarterback, I can win a national title. Yeah. That didn't. No, sorry about it. John said, "Haha, no, best O-line, best defense in college football." Kind of hard to argue that, but
yeah, for sure.
And
so are we supposed to knock the quarterback because he came from a program where everything was good? Like, what the fuck? I don't understand. Like, you can't be a top tier quarterback unless you throw it all over the place. And then the other thing too is, like, we're ripping on JJ McCarthy, and I know the reason why is because people around here, if you're not a Michigan fan, you're going to hate. I mean, I'm a Michigan fan, and if Notre Dame had the spotlight, like, I'd probably be hating too. So I understand it. If Ohio State has the spotlight, I'm hating on that shit too. So I understand how that goes. But like, I haven't heard anybody talk about Caleb Williams in the season that he had this year. Like, and everybody's just like, he's number one, and including myself. I'm like, he's number one, but he was fucking terrible this year.
It all comes down to he reminds folks most of Patrick Mahomes.
It's the upside. You see the upside. But you have to see the upside with McCarthy, too. And the other thing, and this is where I get another thing I say with McCarthy before I go Penix or before I go Nix or any of those guys. You got to look at the age. Yeah. Two of them are 25, 26 years old. McCarthy's 21. That's a big deal. That
was going to be the next, and Cody pointed that out. He said, and Cody, if you actually accepted the thing on Facebook, I could bring your name up, douchebag. But he says, how young JJ is. Perfect. He asked, did JJ run a 40? I don't know.
He didn't.
I don't know. There's your answer.
And I think that he said and who knows? I mean, their agents are telling them what is best and what's not best for them, and I think a lot of things when it comes to this, it kind of becomes you save things. Mm-hmm. So Michigan will have a pro day, and it'll be closer to the draft. And I think you save some things so that way you can kind of, you pull out a 40 which I think McCarthy's going to shock a lot of fucking people when the 40 numbers come out. And so you pull that out 2-3 days, a week before the draft. Then it's not something, you don't want to give people too much time on that. So I think that's all kind of strategic, the way they work things around the combine and the draft, especially with quarterbacks. But no, you're going to see his 40 time before the draft starts. And look, I don't think the 40 is that huge of, of a thing. But I mean, the way that these NFL offenses are built now, like mobile quarterbacks and quarterbacks that can drop it and run it, are a big deal. And there's no question that this kid can. He's an athlete. He's going to shock some people when it comes to that.
Cody also said Harbaugh is trading Herbert to Chicago for the number 1 pick and taking JJ. He said he would be the first quarterback and then taking Marvin Harrison Jr. at 5.
All McCarthy does is win.
Yeah, and John said Denbrock made Kelly look really good. Yes, he did. Cody also says that he bet JJ's 40 is sub 4.5.
Yep, I agree.
I can see that. Well, 2Ks, let's jump into talk a little college hoops here. Now,
I think I'll say this just as the last thing. Out of all those 6 quarterbacks that we've talked about that are all potentially could go in the first round, I bet McCarthy will have the fastest 40.
Yeah. Yeah, I never really, with Caleb Williams, I don't think I ever really saw him. They really didn't do like
Caleb Williams is very elusive.
Yeah.
It's the being able, the kind of Mahomes thing. So you can do, just crazy things like that and extend plays. But as far as just strictly athlete and just fast, I think speed wise, I think McCarthy would get him. We'll see. We're gonna see. I mean, who knows? Caleb Williams might not do shit because the only thing he's showed me in the last year or so is he's definitely not a competitor. So,
crying on the sideline, really.
But he puts up big numbers, and according to most of these experts that you see tweeting on the draft and the combine, it's those don't matter. It's just about throwing the ball a lot.
Yeah, a lot. Well, 2K, speaking of college hoops, I did a little preview last week and was tooting UConn pretty heavy. Then they go out and get it was 2 weeks ago, sorry. And what do? They go out and just get trounced by, I think it was Creighton. So one of the things that I kind of said is that there isn't a number one, like a head and shoulders above anyone else number one team. There just really isn't this year. Is that okay? Yeah. Is it going to make brackets really exciting? Absolutely. This is not the year that you're going to see a perfect bracket. I guarantee it.
No,
I guarantee it.
There's so much parity, and I think it's a lot of it is when we were just talking about college football, and when you talk about the NIL and the transfer portal and these kids being able to transfer everywhere, and I mean I could sit here and I could say a lot of negative things about that, and I think a lot of people would agree with me on a lot of the negatives, but one thing that I do really, really like about this transfer portal and the NIL is it has made a lot of parity in the league, in football and in basketball, and that we did not have, especially in football. I mean, there for a long time, it was Alabama every year. It was Georgia every year. They were recruiting down there in the Texas, the Floridas, all the best recruiting states, and they were down there just winning that shit year in and year out. They had the number one recruiting class, the number two recruiting class, 4 or 5 stars, the best quarterback. They had everything. And this transfer portal and the NIL has all of a sudden made things. I'm still not saying that other teams and conferences are to the SEC level in football, but they're gaining on them and they're getting closer. And so to me, I think that's a good thing. I like the idea of seeing, and we're seeing that in the basketball level too. Is we're starting to see some other teams that we never really talked about in years past, and all of a sudden, we still have the Blue Bloods, but we're seeing Houston come out of nowhere. I shouldn't say out of nowhere. They've been doing this now for a while, but 4 or 5 years ago that they weren't doing this, and now where we're at today, and we're a few weeks out from the tournament starting. I think Houston's is that team right now.
Well, it's a good thing you brought that up, 2Ks, because I do have a tweet about Houston. This is from College Basketball Report. Houston is now 25-3, tied for the best record in college basketball. 9 Q1 wins, tied for second. One game lead in the Big 12. Number one in net, Ken Pom, whatever the hell that means. They said this team wouldn't be able to compete in the Big 12. I think they in their early on here, I think they've proved a lot of people wrong. And I told you when we were talking about this at your house a couple weeks ago. I'm in Houston. I think it was number 3 at the time. I was like, this is the team I'm putting my money on. They're very well coached. I can really get behind the way they play, the style of play, and I think that style will translate to the big dance. But our buddy Cody here has some thoughts here. Where is it? He says, or a Big Ten team in the Sweet 16. Laughy faces. And he says, weakest Big Ten conference as a whole I've seen probably. Well, Cody, it's a good thing you mentioned that because I got another one here. And I know this is kind of hard to read for you guys, so I'll go ahead and read it for you. Again, this is a College Basketball Report over on Twitter. The Big Ten basketball standings looks exactly opposite of football. Big Ten West teams hold the top 7 seeds at the moment. In 2Ks, to kind of go right along with Cody, there are only 2 top 25 teams in the Big Ten, with Purdue and then Illinois being the number 2 team, and then number 3, Northwestern.
Yeah.
And Nebraska, Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, and we won't go much further than that. But yeah, this is a very down year for the Big Ten.
They just and they don't have the teams. I mean, I do think that Illinois is really, really good. I think Purdue's obviously really, really good, but I don't trust them.
Nope.
What have they done in recent years in the tournament?
Wreck every fucking bracket I take them in.
Yes. So nobody in the nation trusts them. I do think that Illinois is really, really good, though, and I think Illinois is set up to where they could go on a little bit of a run in tournament play. They very, very good offensive team, and then can also flat out defend too. And then the rest of the Big Ten, I mean, not the rest, but there's about 4 or 5 teams that I think are pretty good teams. I'm not saying they're teams that are going to make Final Four runs or anything like that, but pretty good teams. But it's kind of the same story of every year with the Big Ten. Is they just beat each other up. Mm-hmm. They beat each other up, and this year they're not as good. They're not as top heavy as they've been in other years where you have 6, 7 teams that are top 25, and they still are beating each other up. This year you have really 2, maybe 3 teams that are really good, and then the rest of them. But that conference is just different from every other conference. I don't know what it is. They don't call fouls. It's very similar to like Big Ten football. Also, Big Ten football is they can't match up with the SEC as far as like athleticism and all that. But they just beat each other up in Big Ten football too, to a whole different caliber than most other conferences. So it's that. I guess it's just that Midwest mentality of how of how you play.
Ground and pound and 3 yards of dust. But no, we won't get into, because I have a feeling we don't have enough time left on this podcast. But I'm sure we'll get into it here eventually about the demise of Michigan basketball, because that's the name that's absent from the top of that Big Ten.
Oh, it is bad.
But here, let's. I did find this really cool stat about Kansas, and when I started reading this 2Ks, I'm like, oh man, I didn't realize the Jayhawks were that bad. Kansas basketball has officially had its worst regular season in the Bill Self era. The Jayhawks are messy. They're 21-8, 14-1 at home, 7-3 versus top 25 teams, a projected 3 seed. Basketball is the standard, Lawrence. So if your worst season at the helm of one of these blue blood programs is a number 3 seed, you're not doing too bad. Mm-hmm. You're not doing too bad. And Bill Self is one of those guys that, we've seen a lot of the kind of what we would consider old heads in college basketball step aside. You got Jay Wright, obviously Coach K, amongst even Mike Bray. There's a lot of turnover here, and we are seeing some of these programs still in good hands, but still there's some of them that are, Villanova for one, they've kind of dropped off. Mm-hmm. Duke is still they're still not the Duke that was, but it's still better than what it could be. Mm-hmm. And with Notre Dame basketball, there really wasn't a huge expectation for Coach Shrew over there, and that's kind of played out right in front of us. So give him some time. I'm really not worried about that. But it seems kind of like a flux year. You know what I mean? We're not really sure where anything's going to go. Like you and I were talking about before we went live, there really isn't like this predominant number 1 overall pick that's looming, a la Zion Williamson or some of these others that are like, nope, that's the guy. That's the guy. The number 1 overall pick, it's bound to be this guy. Mm-hmm. And I know I jokingly said, last week, or 2 weeks ago, but the audio is so fucked up that if the Pistons get the number 1 overall pick, could they take Caitlin Clark? It sounds kind of ridiculous, but
she might be the number 1 player in the States.
Yeah,
as far as coming out, because I think what we'll see in the NBA draft is probably multiple players coming from overseas.
Yeah,
especially those early picks in the draft, because there's just really not a college player right now that's standing out at all. So then you got to look into that, into that G League, and what do you have overseas? And I know that there are some players over there that they'll probably look at that. The Pistons got a lot of shit they got to fucking figure out before they're going to be anything. And then you also have to, you have to consider with the NBA it's a draft, so it's a lottery, so you're not guaranteed that. So.
Yeah, if the Pistons could have just won the lottery last year, and got Wemby could be in Detroit too.
Yeah.
And that's another show. That's another topic for another show. Is I really want to talk about how good this kid really is.
Oh my God!
And there are so many people hating on him and the Spurs and how terrible this team is, and it's like, yeah, the team sucks. There's a reason why they were number 1.
Well, he's just so he's very, very skilled. So I'm not trying to say what I'm about to say, because he does have a lot of skill, but he's still so raw.
Oh yeah,
and he hasn't even grown into his body yet. And defensively, he's amazing because he's just so long, lanky. He's gonna block shots. He's like, what do you do against that? And
he can finger roll from
he
the
can basically
three-point
defend
line.
the 3-point line from the block. So it's just like he's incredible, and he's only going to continue to get better.
Yes.
He's so young. He's going to fill it, and he's going to start to fill that frame out. He's going to get better at offensively, where he can do more things with the ball in his hand. He's already a pretty damn good shooter. He's got so much, like the sky is the limit for him. It's going to be very fun to watch here these next few years.
Cody pipes in and says Dickinson hurt himself leaving Michigan. I don't think so, because that Michigan team's terrible.
Well, and so the Dickinson thing was,
it was money.
It's obvious it was money. And he came out on a podcast and just flat out said it. And so I respect that. He just said Kansas was willing to offer me. Basically, the way the numbers fell, it was basically going to be $1 million more. And he said, "Look, my game does not translate to the pros. I'm never going to be someone that can stick in the NBA and make money that way. So at the college level, if I have the opportunity to go get my bag, I have to go. I have to take that now." And he still has the Michigan degree. I mean, so he's. I don't think either way he stays at Michigan. I think it's safe to say if he stays in Michigan, he has bigger numbers than what he has this year.
Yeah, he's the only one there.
But yeah, that Michigan team is bad. So I don't think he's putting up crazy numbers. He never really had a draft stock. I mean, look, last year the dude was scoring 18, 19 points a game and had over 10 rebounds a game, and nobody was even considering him in the draft. So he tested that. He went and looked and did the research and was seeing where thought he was going to fit or where he was going to be drafted in that draft. And the answer basically was, you're not going to be drafted. So he came back. He goes to Kansas. He's got an opportunity. I don't think Kansas is good enough to win a national championship. They're obviously going to be in the tournament, though, and they're probably going to be a 2 or a 3 seed. So he's going to have an opportunity, unlike what he would have had if he stayed at Michigan, as far as to win. But as far as if you're talking about him leaving hurt his draft stock, I don't think there was ever any draft stock to begin with.
He goes on to say Baycott sucks this year. And is this Armando Baycott's like 8th year?
Yeah.
I mean, he says he had all the talk last year. No one else is taking advantage. And he also said, talking about Dickinson leaving, he said loyal to reasons, personally. So, and I get that.
The Dickinson leaving kind of hurt Michigan just because of some of the other. So Caleb Love was supposed to be going there, from North Carolina, who ended up in Arizona, probably the best player on that Arizona team right now. He was transferring to Michigan. When the Dickinson news came out, he also decided that he was not going to go to Michigan. He left also, so that hurts. And then you also have Terrence Shannon, who was committed to Michigan as through the transfer portal. He elects to go to Illinois instead when all that came down, and Terrence Shannon is probably a top 2 or 3 player in all the Big Ten at Illinois right now. So the Dickinson leaving kind of hurt Michigan, and not just in the Dickinson, it hurt them as a whole. Of some of these other transfer players that were committed to go there, but once they got once the news come out of Dickinson leaving, they both decided that they were out on that too. So it's always going to be that the what if season. Because obviously if you have those 3, you're going to be a really good team. But I'm not even going to get too deep right now into the Michigan thing, because I need a couple hours to talk on that one, to talk about how just how fucking bad that situation is right now.
So I'm. Yeah, and Cody says, and in a horrible Big Ten. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, 2Ks, let's switch gears here to our top 5. This week we're doing top 5 college basketball players since 2000. Since 2000. Do you have your list ready?
Not really.
If not,
I'm still kind of...
I can go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Number 5, I'm going to go with Adam Morrison. I mean, that dude was... I mean, he pretty much is the one that put Gonzaga on the map. That team with him and that nasty mustache and long hair, it never really equated anything to the NBA, which was kind of sad, because he was a big guy. He could shoot the lights out of everything. But as far as dominating college basketball during that time, I got to give a nod to Adam Morrison. Number 4, again, game never really translated to the NBA, but had a huge impact on I believe it was multiple March Madnesses, was Jimmer Fredette.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he came out of nowhere. I leading up to that, I had no idea who this kid was. Mm-hmm. And then next thing you know, he's a household name. And, great shooter. That was number 4. Number 3, sticking with the shooters, give me J.J. Redick. He was probably, during that time, the most clutch shooter out of anyone in college basketball. Got to give a nod to him. Number 2, I got to go Steph Curry, because he, probably leading up to and since then, Davidson has never been anything. So without him, Davidson never really does anything. But yet we got to see a little preamble of what is come to fruition now in the NBA. But even then, there was a lot of people that were like, this guy sucks. Mm-hmm. I mean, he doesn't suck, but his body, there's no way he's going to be able to ever compete in the NBA. He's too small. He's too small. He's too this. He's too that. Well, I think he's quieted those critics quite well. And then number 1, I have to agree with Cody, Melo.
Yeah.
Melo in Syracuse. Yeah. The only thing, and I almost put him at number 2 just because he was only there for 1 year, but his dominance and his just ability to just ball out, and he was one and done and got a chip out of it. So, and again, he didn't make Syracuse all that. I mean, he didn't make the name, but he was in a long line of greatness, and probably was, I'm not even gonna say probably, he was the best player to come out of there. Mm-hmm. And so that is my top 5. Let's take a look at what Cody was saying here. He said Melo number 1, nothing else matters. He says love watching Redick at Duke. I did and I didn't, because I was a Duke hater at that point. I've come to love J.J. Redick now as an announcer and as a commentator. But yeah, dude, it's one of those, he was so good I didn't like him.
Yeah.
And when you play for Duke, you kind of have to, that comes with the territory. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Especially when Coach K was there, it was, it's kind of like the Yankees or the Cowboys, mm-hmm. or even Notre Dame. Either you love them or you hate them. Sure. And the reason you hate them is because they win a lot. Mm-hmm. And that was the reason why I wasn't a big fan of Mr. Redick during his playing days. Cody also says Steph looked like a cancer patient in those Davidson threads, all baggy as shit. Yes, he did. It seemed like his head was so tiny. Like, does your head grow? Well, Barry Bonds answered that, but I'm pretty sure Steph didn't do what Barry did to get his head to grow. But 2Ks, what is your number 5?
So I went back and forth because you said you had Adam Morrison at number 5, and I had one guy that I was kind of back and forth with him on, and I'm going to go with the other one, just because at the time Gonzaga was not what Gonzaga is today. So mm-hmm. Gonzaga, I'm a firm believer that Adam Morrison kind of created that. Yes. Adam Morrison and Mark Few mm-hmm. are the two that kind of created the Gonzaga, where that's what it just seems like basketball all of a sudden became cool. And when Adam Morrison was there, you have a guy with this fucking long ass hair,
looks
a dirty
homeless.
mustache, socks, and he just like created the basketball. But I'm gonna leave him off. He's gonna be my number 6, and I'm leaving him off for this
honorable
guy.
Mention.
Another smaller school that you don't talk about a whole lot. And the only reason I go with this guy is because he just was a flat out fucking shooter of the basketball. Really had no size at all. Coming from BYU, and I'm gonna go Jimmer Fredette. Mm-hmm. It was just insane watching him. You would watch him, and he just was putting up like 30 every night, similar to what Morrison was doing. Mm-hmm. Carried a team that had no fucking business being in the tournament, got him to the tournament. Never really went on to do anything in the NBA, but as far as just a college basketball player, mm-hmm. dude's fucking numbers are insane.
I agree.
Number 4, I'm going to go J.J. Redick too. To me, probably the second best player, college basketball player I've seen at Duke. Just flat out. Well, he'll be later on my list. Second best player that I've seen at Duke in my time. dude could just flat out shoot the rock, just a flat out scoring machine. So yeah, I have him at number 4. Number 3, I'm gonna go. This one's tough because I'm with you on the Melo thing, but I almost want to leave Melo out because I want this guy, and my top 2 are not changing. So I'm gonna leave Melo out and another just to make another one interesting. And look,
bold strategy.
I think what Melo did in that year at Syracuse was awesome. Obviously, led him to a national championship, and so probably if I was just making my list without hearing your guys's, I probably would have Melo on there over this guy. But I'm just going to be different. I'm going to say Kevin Durant, another guy that we only saw for 1 year at Texas, but just fucking insane, insane college basketball player, and then went on to have a better NBA career than what Melo has had. It's safe to say that. You're talking about a guy that potentially could be a top 10 all-time NBA basketball player with
and
Durant.
Again, there was a ton of people saying he was too small.
Yeah.
He was too small.
Number 2, this goes to my Duke player, Jason Williams. Mm-hmm. Jason Williams was insane, and if it wasn't for a terrible motorcycle accident right after he gets drafted, that's the unfortunate thing with him is it'll always be the kind of the what if story if he would have been able to go on and have that NBA career, because him at Duke, now I understand he played with some really good teammates, but those teams would not have even been close to the success that they had if it wasn't for him. Just an amazing player. And then number 1, and I do not like this guy. It's almost like if you're talking about best college football player of all time, Tim Tebow's got to be in that. And Tim Tebow's in it, and I can't argue it, but I don't like him. I'm not all this diehard. And so for me, you have to go North Carolina. You have to go Tyler Hansbrough. Mm-hmm. The numbers don't lie. The numbers are incredible. He's another one that the guy played his entire career out there, and so obviously the numbers do nothing but get bigger. But he was just a fucking winner. Every team he played on,
dunker
won.
Of a basketball in basketball history.
But he just was a winner, and every single game, 20-some points, over 10 rebounds. He did all the dirty work. Like, he was just that. As far as a college teammate, he's the guy that you want on your team. Nobody wants to do all the shit that he's doing. No. But if you're going to be a team that's going to win for as many games as what those teams won, you need that guy, and he was that guy. And to me, I think he's the best college basketball player that I've ever seen. And in all honesty, and I'm not saying skill, I'm just saying basketball player, winner. What we're talking about, what we talk about when we talk about Tim Tebow. Mm-hmm. If you're just talking about basketball player, I think it's Hansbrough. Honestly, I don't even think it's close.
And in doing the research on this, I found it rather. There were a lot of, and just this list here. This was one of the last ones I pulled up here. 2Ks. This is from the Complex, and they have the top 25 college basketball players since 2000, and in Trae Young, there's Buddy Hield and Blake Griffin, all from Oklahoma. How in Oklahoma never really sniffed any postseason, any postseason success at all. Yeah. And another one that almost made my list was Dwayne Wade. Mm-hmm. I mean, he took Marquette to a Final Four, I believe. And let's see here. Yeah, he had a triple-double in the Elite Eight against the number 1 seed Kentucky. So yeah, he but they fell short in the Final Four. I mean, what's kind of cool about this list, 2K, is you can see there's a lot of prominent NBA guys in here, but there's a lot of these guys that were never really did shit in the NBA. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of guys that were one and done.
Yeah.
So when you start talking about, like, when I say Tyler Hansbrough, he's my number 1. Well, he's a guy that played multiple years. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying he's the most talented guy. That's obvious. It's not.
Right.
There's fucking 20 guys. I can come up with a list of 20 that are more talented than him and had it, but the difference is they only played for 1 year.
Cody says the Brow honorable mention. Yep, Anthony Davis had a very, very great college career. One that probably won't get a whole lot of love is Kemba Walker. Mm-hmm. That was
when the Big East was loaded.
Yeah, and I remember one of those tournaments where he just took the whole tournament over. Not a game, the whole tournament over. So to say that, this is kind of a loaded, past 25 years, I think, yeah, absolutely. And Shane Battier hated him. Michael Beasley.
No, he's a freaking stud in college.
And there's KD, looking scrawny as shit. Then JJ's number 6, Melo 5, Zion 4. Zion's way too high on this list.
I agree.
He was electric, yes. Anthony Davis 3, Tyler Hansbrough 2, and Jay Williams 1. So yeah, it was a very interesting list to kind of go down and see and walk down memory lane a little bit. But Cody says, good list, boys. Well, thank you. Oh, he mentions one that isn't even on the list.
What was I can't even
Noah. Joakim Noah.
No.
Another nasty stash and baggy hair.
That was a very, very fun team to watch, but he wasn't even the best player on that team. He wasn't even the best post on that team. Well, the best post on that team is still playing today. Horford was the best player on that team.
I forgot he was there. You're right. Well, 2K Crew will get you out of here on that. Everyone have a great week. Enjoy the weather. Thank goodness it looks like spring is finally here. At least my flowers and trees and everything else is saying so. But yeah, it's I'm not sure. I kind of had an idea where we're going to go next week, but only time will tell. We'll leave it at that. And 2K Crew, like I said, we'll get you out of here. Have a great week. And as always, Jim Rome, we're coming for you.